But the bottom line is, when you logged in there, it was stealing your Facebook credentials.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
They'd see what I had for lunch.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to episode 378 of the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle of Cardinal. Good morning, Donna.
Hello, David.
I would ask you how things are going, but
let's just don't go into it.
Off the rails would be a little bit of an understatement.
Yep. I feel so sad and I mean, there's just no words when you see what happened in Southwest Florida.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to be in Southwest Florida on Sanibel Island, my annual trip where I shut down and be quiet and watch the ocean waves and listen to the birds sing so that I reboot. And so much of it is just gone. And it is horrifying to see the power of nature and what it's done to the people of Southwest Florida. And so all I can offer is my heart goes out, because there is no way other than the donations and trying to participate any way possible in recovery. It's going to be a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what my week was supposed to be when I took the week off. And then I tried something else and that didn't work either, as you pointed out. So we're going to try this week again, all anew, David.
Start over.
Starting over. Yeah.
Yeah. So as you may be able to hear, Donna is not in studio.
No.
So
No.
She's another undisclosed location. It's part of the whole witness protection thing.
At least this week.
Yeah.
I'm protected.
Yeah. So speaking of things that are going off the rail, our topic for today will be discussing some vetting tips before you download that app. So if you happen to be a smartphone user, you might want to listen.
Yeah, those computers that make phone calls can get you in some trouble.
Yeah, there's an app for that.
Mm-hmm. That was cool when it first started.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. And there's a lot around apps and how secure or not they are. And so we're going to talk about some of these ways that you can vet apps in your organization. All right. So let's get into reminding everybody, first thing, the Privacy and Security Bootcamp, or as we like to say, the PriSec Bootcamp, can be found at prisecbootcamp.com. All the information is there. It's going to be a 3.5-day in-person event. So because we're looking at people again.
Mm-hmm.
March 12, 13, 14, and 15 of 2023. We're going to have a great time. So you want to talk about what we're going to be doing?
Yeah, so we're doing a series. Hopefully we'll be better at explaining the boot camp, because we're not good at that. So we're talking about what we're going to cover in the PriSec boot camp. We've discussed that we have a theme for the day. And so on Monday, the theme for the day is you got to prove it. There you go. You got to boost it. So, we got to figure something out there.
I know. If anybody knows somebody who can do that song, so we can have a song done, you got to prove it.
I know, without major licensing problems.
I know. Yeah.
So we will be covering several things on the first full day, because we do a half day before, kind of warm things up. But you got to prove it day is launched by, we got feedback from one of our other boot camps where they're like, if you'd told me this, we used to do this at the end, and if you'd told me this at the beginning, I would have seen everything differently.
Yes.
And so what we're going to do is go through sample questions from OCR, the things attorney generals look for, your business partners might be asking in vetting, and cyber insurance applications. But the OCR investigation letter gets the most attention usually. And you just did that. You want to do a shout out to the folks that you just did a big review of that with, huh?
Yeah. So I spoke at a conference that FSA put on. Don't ask me what the acronym stands for. I forgot. but but FSA put it on, and one of my talks, I did 2 different ones, and one of them was about the OCR letter. And as expected, there was a lot of jaws dropping,
Hit the ground,
and a lot of emailing and phone calling immediately afterwards back to their practice to ask questions and to implement changes. Let's say.
Yeah, you know you're doing a good informational session when you see people actively texting and emailing and all kinds of things, taking frantic notes, pictures of the screen, and texting them. So
Yeah. And I didn't get the guy's name, but I have to just give a shout out to the guy that was there that happened to be a COO. Like, he's the only C-suite guy there. And I'm thinking, dude, I don't know what organization you're from. I didn't have an opportunity to talk to him, but that's fantastic. Like, you should have the C-suite people go to training events like that.
mm-hmm. So bring them to the PriceSec boot camp's what I'm saying.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
But we're going to start that way because it is quite eye-opening, and it kind of informs the rest of the event as to why these things matter. And then we're going to go through, because in order to go to the boot camp, we used to spend a half a day covering all the basics to make sure everybody understood them all, but we ran out of time. So you have a training video and a quiz, and it's always interesting to see before the boot camp. You mean I got to go to a class before I go to a conference? No, you got to go to a class before you go to a class.
Yeah.
And it has quizzes, and you see everybody doing it at the last minute because they think they know the basics, and then it's like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, it becomes quite an entertaining moment to go through those. And then we're going to do some breakouts and talk about the privacy and breach notification rules, specific things for covered entities, and specific things for business associates. So we do the why about the big picture, and then we get into the specifics on how for each of them. And then we do our important session on the importance of written policies and procedures, and we explain why this is so key, and we even do some interesting ways of showing you the difference in when you don't have written policies and procedures and when you do. And then we tell you how you go about developing and implementing policy in a very general way, because often people don't realize you need policies and procedures about your policies and procedures. And then, of course, once you have the policies and procedures, you're going to need to audit them. And auditing your policies and procedures, it's a review that should be done on a regular basis, but we talk about how you would audit general policies and procedures. And then there are security audits, which are not the same as monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different. So we talk about those and split you up based on there. Then we talk about the training program development, why you need to do it, and the kinds of things that you need to consider when you're dealing with training your staff. And then the next session, I think we do these simultaneously so that you pick which one goes for you. Communicating with management, how you should be reporting PriceSec to management. And if you're in management, what you should be asking for to see and you know, what kinds of data matter versus, you know, the baffling BS.
Mm-hmm.
And then the primo event of the day is the Bourbon and Breeches Happy Hour. where we will be pairing a breech story with a bourbon that you can taste if you want, but it is a happy hour. So we'll try to, have a little fun with it while we do some real world case studies, if you will.
Yeah.
So,
I'm looking forward to seeing how you pull that together.
hey, look, I have always been creative and many people find some years ago, I wrote a blog post still out there, Jimi Hendrix and HIPAA.
Mm-hmm.
If I can do that, I can certainly come up with a way to make people say I need a sip of bourbon after hearing that breech story.
That is true.
So that is Monday, day one, first full day of the PriceSec Boot Camp. And you can listen to last week's episode and the week before to get a better understanding of the other stuff. And the next couple of weeks, we'll cover the next 2 days.
Cool. All right. So a few more little housekeeping things before we dive into our topic. Number one, you have a mission this week. You have to share this podcast with at least one person. So go do that. Also, if you want to know how to find Donna or myself, you can find Donna at cardenhq.com. And if you can find me at HIPAA4MSPs.com. And you can even misspell HIPAA and it'll get you there. I want to say thanks again to our donors. We definitely appreciate your support. If you want to know how to be a donor, you can go to our website, helpmewithhipaa.com, to find out more. All right. Now let's dive into our HIPAA Say What?
Oh, that was a good one.
I know. I've been working on that. Oh, man. So this is an interesting case that came up last week where a doctor did things where you have to scratch your head thinking, well, what were you thinking?
Or were you thinking at all?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the interesting part when I read the published article from the District of New Jersey, the State Attorney's General Office, or State Attorney's Office rather, it starts with a former physician with medical practices in New Jersey, New York, and Florida admitted to wrongly disclosing PHI. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but due to his age, 65-year-old Frank Alario, I'm guessing he probably said, I'm out. I'm retiring. After being, potentially, I guess, after being called up in this, but maybe not. And the reason I say that is because it did happen from 2014 to 2016, where it is, I would say it's alleged, but he pled guilty. He said he did it. There's another guy in this story, Mr. Ritson, who is a pharmaceutical sales rep who promotes compound prescription medications and other stuff. But as it turns out, what was going on was that the doctor was allowing Mr. Ritson permitted access to PHI, but not just permitted access. He also said, you can have access to my office, to my medical files, patient information. You can come in and be present in the office, both during and outside of normal business hours. And you can have access, unrestricted access to places that only staff should be. And and you can also get into our files to help us determine if a patient had insurance to cover the compounding that you're doing. And even allowed the pharmacist to come into patient exam rooms during appointments and gave patients the impression that Ritson was employed or affiliated with somehow the medical practice. And here's the thing, like, there was no BAA in place. The pharmacy wasn't even the pharmacy that by default the practice dealt with. So lots of craziness happening. And of course, Ritson, the pharmaceutical guy, got kickbacks for the medications. It doesn't say whether or not the doctor got kickbacks or not, but
it does. Yeah, I mean, really, there's so much that doesn't make sense about why this guy did it until you get to the part where it says, oh yeah, they're also previously charging an indictment alongside this guy for conspiring to violate HIPAA and other offenses.
Yeah. So there's more out there that's even above and beyond this.
Yeah, there's more to the story.
Yeah. But what kind of craziness is this? But it's also a good reminder that guess what? HIPAA can be a criminal offense.
That's right. You can honestly go to jail for violating HIPAA. And it's not something that happens every day, but it's not something that doesn't happen either.
Yep.
And it can be at the state. Attorneys General has the power to enforce HIPAA this way, as well as the Department of Justice. So HIPAA can be a criminal case.
Yep.
You know, it is a law. So, and I think a lot of people are surprised you could go to prison for up to 10 years and up to $250,000 fine. This guy, at least in the case where he is pleading guilty, he, $50,000 fine and 1 year in prison just on this one piece.
Mm-hmm.
But he hasn't been sentenced yet, but he has pled guilty.
Yeah. And we don't know if there's anything on the OCR side of things. Like this is not the HIPAA investigation. This is the breaking the law investigation.
Yeah. So we don't know where else things are going.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lawyers making money off this guy is all we can say.
Yeah. The other thing to point out too is retiring doesn't mean you don't have to face the music.
That's right.
I've heard that before. I'll just retire if I no.
Yeah. You're going to face the music at some point.
Yeah.
Well, then that brings us to our next thing, the 405D tip of the week.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a link to it here because we forgot to promote it in advance, but the good news is there's recordings of it. The Spotlight webinar, which is a regular thing done by the 405D group, this particular one was the legal implications of a cyber attack, which I think a lot of people forget. Speaking about legal,
Mm-hmm.
these two worked really well together on the lead-in. But we'll have links to both the YouTube link to the recording as well as the slide deck, and highly recommend it. And then also to say, let's watch this space because we have a lot of cool things coming. And it's like every meeting I have, I'm like, what? It's so close.
Mm-hmm.
That 405D is going to start rolling out a lot of stuff over the next 3 to 6 months. So we're going to be really enjoying having stuff to share.
That's right. All right, let's dive into the vetting tips before you download that app because, it's a thing.
Yep. When I saw it, I'm like, hello, that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, the other thing to point out here, and I know you're going to, but for those who have Apple devices, don't shut the podcast off and go, but I use Apple, so I don't have to worry about that.
Oh, no. We always say, nay. You just worry differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. You just worry differently. Android boy, he loves his, and there's a lot of advantages, but there's also disadvantages no matter which one you choose.
Mm-hmm.
And so the openness of the Android operating system allows a lot more apps to be developed, and the process is different than with iOS, that is the Apple operating system. But guess what? Over 400 malicious apps between the two stores. Now, granted, the majority of them are under the Google Play Store, which is Android, 355 of them. But iOS still had 47, and they go through a vetting process.
Yeah, a very tight vetting process.
Right. But what was found here is what was happening with the app is they would throw up the option for you to log in with Facebook.
Yep. That sounds convenient.
No. no, no, and no again. But what they were essentially doing in their app was they would throw this up there and it would have this nice little feature, with the what do they call that? The social login. Or
Yeah.
who knows? But the bottom line is when you logged in there, it was stealing your Facebook credentials.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
They'd see what I had for lunch.
But then from there, they could pivot and do a lot of things while you're not even aware of it.
Uh-huh.
And depending on how the apps went about it within this little API call to allow the login, you were logged in. They would log you in. It's just they would keep the information instead of handling it properly.
Mm-hmm.
So what had happened was lots of people were giving up their Facebook logins every time they would use this. So not everybody used the Facebook login, but this just shows to go you that if you're downloading these apps and you're not even thinking about it, and a lot of people say like, oh, well, I don't have to worry about it because X. And so that's what we're going to go through in our 3 tips. You assume, and I've had people say, oh, I would know if it was bad.
I got this.
I wouldn't even be sure I knew it was bad.
Yeah.
And, there's a ton of people that might actually be able to do just a few little things. But for the most part, you should assume they're all wrong. They're all bad until proven. You are guilty until proven innocent when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yep.
At least that's what we should be doing. We are. Wait, they call that zero trust.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. So here's kind of the way I look at it. And so the number one we're going to start with is where this is, I guess we'll call it a misconception that is a tip. Meaning, if you say this is not helpful.
Yeah.
I read the reviews before I downloaded the app.
Yeah. I mean, I do too. And I'm not saying you shouldn't.
Mm-mm.
However, I love your little graphic that you put down here.
It always, anytime somebody says that, it always reminds me of this XKCD comic. I love XKCD, but you can share the joy of that one.
Yeah, so it's, go check it out on our show notes page, but it's basically like a review of an app, and it's got an average of a 4-star rating, and there's 3 ratings, and the first 3 are all 5 stars. They're talking about how the UI is great, and it's got so many choices, and the app doesn't crash, and you can set it to look at multiple locations. And by the way, the app is a tornado guard app as opposed to alert you on your phone when there's a tornado. So there's all these 5-star reviews about how good the app looks and the choices it has and all that. And then there's a 1-star rating that says, yeah, app didn't warn me about a tornado, which is what the thing is supposed to do. It's like, if it doesn't do that, the rest of it doesn't matter. Like, oh, it looks good, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I mean, that's exactly the kind of thing when you're reading the reviews.
Yeah. So if you just look at, oh, but it's got 4-star rating, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. In fact, the rating, especially when you can buy ratings, like you can have people pay them to rate your thing. Don't think bad guys aren't doing that, or they're creating tons of different accounts and rating it themselves. And that's not just on the App Store. Even though this is not the conversation we're having, this happens in Amazon. It happens in all these other places you're purchasing stuff as well.
Right. That's why, like, in Amazon, you'll see the verified purchaser little thing there where they bought it. But, even that sometimes has its flaws, but it has improved it. So I don't care whether it's Yelp or Amazon or Lowe's or,
Yeah. I mean, how many times have you
Whatever.
heard of people have like negative Facebook or Yelp reviews, and the person goes, "You are not a customer. You've never been here. How
Yeah.
are you leaving me a negative review?"
Yeah, and it's everything from competitors to disgruntled employees, people who you didn't select to do business with.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many, and then there's some people that just decide they don't like it. And so they start this, and you literally can go out and buy people, you can pay people to go do negative reviews.
Mhm.
And and so what you have to do is know when you're reading the reviews what you're looking for. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it's like I'm reading the review of an app, and this has got a really good detailed review. This is this and this with some constructive points and these kind of things. And then you get to one where this thing doesn't work at all. I loaded it. It made my phone cry. It's all these horrible things. And then you keep reading and you're like, they do not have a clue what they're doing.
Yeah. I read those often,
Yeah.
especially if it's more techie type apps.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this thing doesn't blah, blah, blah. And you're like, you just don't know what you're
Don't-
doing with it.
This is on you.
Yeah. Or they'll have the $35 phone and wonder why the app won't work.
Or one that they've had for 7 or 8 years. So, yeah.
Yeah. Or, like my dad asked me one time, he said, "What kind of phone do you have, son? I need to get a new phone." I was like, "I've got a Samsung." And he goes, "Well, you recommend I get a Samsung?" I said, "No, I recommend you get an iPhone."
Yep. It's exactly it. My dad has one, and I got a call recently. He's over at my sister's house with his new phone because his other one quit working. So that means Team Dad. But for the most part, you shouldn't download apps just because you read the reviews or it has 5 stars or whatever. Unless you're looking at a ton of reviews and you're able to ascertain that they are literally reviewing the app and it's somebody that's followed it. But even then, they could be stealing your login like some of these apps.
Yeah. I try to keep, and this kind of goes for all of the tips in the podcast, but I really try to stick with developers that are well known, Facebook developer, Google developer, some of I don't do very much with games, which is actually number 2. Our number 2 tip, which is somebody who says, "I don't download games." That's not very helpful either. And I'm one of those. I don't download very many. I do have some.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, the little games I have, they're really just web pages that look like icons. So they're not even apps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't do a whole lot with that either. But if I were, I would do like EA Games or some of these big producers of games. Those are the ones I would look at. I'd stay away from these little, developers that I don't know anything about.
Yeah. Some that have been there a long time, been around the block. But just because everybody else starts downloading it does not mean you should start downloading it.
Yeah. Or people look at now, I know you don't do this, but some people, they'll look at it and go, "Oh, it's been downloaded 20 million times. It has to be legit."
Uh-huh. Yep. No, I don't pay attention to that either. That's kind of like looking at the reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So to say that I don't download games, not very helpful.
No.
Because of the broad list that in this Meta article, and we've got a link to that article, but I picked it up in the Hacker News, and we got a link to that one as well. But they point out something that, because I didn't catch this from the Meta discussion of it, but 42.6% of the rogue apps were photo editors.
What?
Uh-huh. So all those ones where you got cool filters and you're able to turn you into a cartoon And I mean, they do the same thing on Facebook itself with the
Yeah.
apps that, take your picture, turn it into a cartoon. And everybody gets into doing this. And I'm like, in order to do that, you're giving them facial recognition.
Yeah, that scares the mess out of me that people would do that and do it so readily.
Yeah. Don't even think about it. Don't even
Yeah.
think about it at all.
You look it up and go, oh, this app was made by the Chinese government. Fantastic.
Yeah. It's like there are so many apps, and some of these, not mainstream social media apps are run in China and Russia and all these other places, and nobody pays attention to that.
Yeah. TikTok.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I know there's a lot on TikTok. Can't load it. I just can't allow myself to load it. Can't do it.
Yeah, and it's gaining massive popularity lately too.
Oh yeah.
And
Everybody loves it, but it freaks me out. Just the concept
Mhm.
of what's going on with it. And people aren't realizing how much it's tracking and what they're giving them. So you got the social media stuff in other countries. You got the rogue apps that are photo edit, but only 42.6. So that means we have over 50% other kinds of apps.
Mhm.
The next one, business utilities. So not downloading games so far hasn't helped us.
Yeah. So
The next-
whether you're playing or working.
Yeah, it's photo and I'm going to give you some of the names of some of these apps so that you can see. But you've got the business utilities, phone utilities is next, then games, then VPNs.
Oh, we talked about them before.
Uh-huh.
The
So-
free VPNs.
Yeah. And then I guess what they dump under lifestyle apps. And
It's probably
yeah.
dating today. Who knows, man? That could be anything.
I know, right? But they, in the hacker news, they said, interestingly, a majority of the iOS apps posed as ad managers for Meta and the Facebook subsidiary.
Huh.
I
It
know. I
is.
thought that was odd.
So who would be running, or who would need ad managers except for probably businesses?
Uh-huh. So, and a lot of folks trying to, start their own business, side hustles, whatever you want to call them. But here are some of the names of the apps that are listed as malicious in this 400 and something. And we're just going to run through. I just grabbed a few so that you can see that the name of the app also doesn't help. So the name of the app, whether the type of the app, any of them could be malicious, and it gets back to who is the developer, as David mentioned. So I love some of these names. Cartoon Face Photo Editor. Instapic Photo Editor Pro. Collage Maker.
It's a pro. It's got to be legit.
I know. Fun Wallpaper. Okay, it's for fun. It's not
It's
doing
just
anything.
just wallpaper.
Flash QR code scanner.
That's one where I like. Why do you download a QR code scanner? Like your phone
don't
does
know.
that already.
I don't know, because people think that they see that and they don't know it. So then they say, well, I got to get a scanner for that.
Yeah.
But no. And then Tuber VPN. I love this one. Free and secure VPN proxy server.
Yeah, because you can say secure without it being secure.
And it's free and secure.
Oh, those are two words that shouldn't be together.
I know, right? Hotspot free VPN. Then I love this one. Files clear. It clears all your files for you. App lock, which locks apps, and privacy guard.
Oh, guard your privacy. It's got to be good.
Yeah. Smart app lock. So it's smarter than you are to lock the bad apps. And then Business Meta Manager, Business Manager Pages, Business Manager Overview, Business Suite, and all-in-one doc editor and viewer. That's just a sample of the business ones.
Mm.
You know, the names, it's pretty innocuous. They're not going to say, well, look, I won't go into who told me when I said stop downloading weather apps unless I tell you they're okay. But it tells me the weather. I know. But it does other stuff. You know?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to have a malicious app, make it actually work so they keep it on there and recommend it to others.
Right. And so that's the part of, you know, it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be free. It's supposed to be easy so that you ignore it. You forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
So only downloading games versus not downloading games makes no difference. None whatsoever. It does not matter.
Yep.
You're SOL. So, tip number 2 is don't assume that just because it's not a game that it's not malicious. In fact, if it has anything to do with photos, you should be worried and get rid of it unless you know it is a good developer. And VPNs, please be careful. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to use one. I'm using one right now. Even at a friend's house, I'm using a VPN.
And look, on apps, VPNs are cheap. I mean, pay the, what, $3 a month or whatever it is. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to know what we use, I use, and by no way am I saying I am certain that nothing will ever go wrong in either of these cases.
Mm-hmm.
But I use NordVPN, and then for those who are less technical in my world, TunnelBear.
Yep. I use private internet access.
Okay. So see?
You have options.
Yeah, there you go. And then we get to the third tip, which is I only download apps that X tells me they are okay.
X would be Donna.
Right. And even then I'd be like, you should be careful. October is Cybersecurity Month. I might be testing you. And my team is like, please don't do that again.
I know they're still trying to deal with that.
I know. Well, you know, this is the 3rd year in a row and they're expecting it. So.
Yeah, a little PTSD.
But just because somebody tells you it's okay, that may be helpful. But you have to remember, I would tell you, I think that's okay, but I wouldn't say I'm sure that's okay. I didn't even say I was sure it was okay on the VPNs I use. So I can approve them and look at them with the team, and I'll say, okay, you stay away from this app, and then everybody runs around taking it off all the family phones and everything else. But
yeah,
we do want you to be careful, but also, you know, I joke about it, but at the same time, there's so many times, well, my son goes to X technical school or has a degree or works in IT or whatever. I think we covered more than once that IT and cybersecurity are not the same.
Mm-mm. Yeah, very different.
Yeah, I know technical people that know how to write code that can cause things to flip over and jump up and down and sing your name. But they are horrible when it comes to cybersecurity.
Yep. Very different. Also worth mentioning that even if you vetted an app, it's, you know, it shouldn't get like eternal vetting.
Yes.
like I never have to vet it again because it's eternally approved. But, you know, go back and look at these periodically, and especially if they make the news for any reason. And sometimes they do. We've talked before about how we use LastPass, and LastPass has made the news before.
Mm-hmm.
So go back through and look at it. Yeah. And when it happens, we always go back and we revet the thing. We start the process over again because again, you can't just say, well, we've vetted it before 5 years ago. It's good.
Well, and when they were purchased, we started paying attention to how things were working, what the updates were doing. That seemed to be consistent, so we were fine with that. Now they're rolling out to it. I mean, so we're paying attention to these things.
Yeah. Yeah, because every time your app changes, if they're adding more functionality or whatever, that means it's changed. There's more risk involved, and you need to look at it again.
So you're saying change means change?
Change means change. Change.
But those are your 3 tips. A quick review is just by reading the reviews and evaluating the stars and the number of downloads, that is not enough. You have to really, truly evaluate the developer as well as what the reviews are saying. And if they're just giving 5 stars, works great, not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next thing is, it's a certain type of app. No. If it makes you want to download it, it could be malicious, no matter what. Yep. And then anybody that can tell you it's okay to download an app, just be careful who you're trusting, because it's no different than trusting, the criminals. Unless you're sure that they actually vet apps for a living. And I don't say that I vet apps for a living, and I'm constantly paranoid about it. But again, that's my job.
Yep. All right, folks, there you go. There's your 3 vetting tips before you download that app, or maybe even after you've downloaded that app. All right, remember to follow us and share us out on your favorite social media site. Rate us on our podcast now. Give us a review, because if we got a lot of reviews, people will download our app. All right. Thanks again for listening. Remember, HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.